Hey, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Kaylee, and this is a Read Rant Review, where, you guessed it, I read books and I do rant reviews. I give you a beat-by-beat, chapter-by-chapter breakdown of a crazy book that I read recently. Today we are wrapping up the Housemaid trilogy by Freida McFadden. I've recently covered books 1 and 2, and then now we're wrapping it up with the third. Now, if you haven't read books 1 or 2, or you haven't watched those videos, don't worry, you aren't missing much and you won't be confused, because this has nothing to do with the other 2 books. I don't know why this is considered a trilogy. I don't know why we stayed in the same universe. It didn't have to be that way. It didn't have to be this way, but it is. And so we're going to unpack this book today. Like I said, I'll give you the breakdown. I'll give you a real quick recap of book 1 and book 2, just in case you're curious, and I'll have the full rant reviews listed in the description box below. So this book was written in 2024, 383 pages, 3.86 on Goodreads, and currently at 850,000 ratings. A few disclaimers before we get into the video. This is future Kaylee. I forgot to put these in here, and I do feel like this is important, okay? First disclaimer being, this review will in fact contain all of the spoilers. The second disclaimer being that this review is not for the author. It's not for friends, fans, family, stans, anything of the like. Did not like this book, do not like this author, do not like any of these. I will try to keep it lighthearted. We'll have a good time. I'm gonna just kind of tell you about it casually, crack some jokes along the way, and critique it. So if you're gonna go to bat for a millionaire in my comments, don't. And if you're gonna be weird in my comments, or if you're gonna say anything else like, I don't know, don't make it weird. Oh man. Okay, the book description. Are you guys ready for this? I don't think you are. You must be the new neighbors, Mrs. Lowell gushes and waves across the picket fence. I clutch my daughter's hand and smile back. But the second Mrs. Lowell sees my husband, a strange expression crosses her face. In that moment, I make a promise. We finally have a family home. My past is far, far behind us, and I'll do anything to keep it that way. I used to clean other people's houses. Now I can't believe this home is actually mine. The charming kitchen, the quiet cul-de-sac, the huge yard where my kids can play. My husband and I saved for years to give our children the life they deserve. Even though I'm wary of our new neighbor, Mrs. Lowell, when she invites us over for dinner, it's our chance to make friends. Her maid opens the door wearing a white apron, her hair in a tight bun. I know exactly what it's like to be in her shoes, but her cold stare gives me chills. The Lowell's maid isn't the only strange thing on our street. I'm sure I see a shadowy figure watching us. My husband leaves the house late at night. Sorry. I feel like one of these things is not like the other. Why? Okay. And when I meet a woman who lives across the way, her words chill me to the bone. Be careful of your neighbors. Did I make a terrible mistake moving my family here? I thought I'd left my darkest secrets behind. But could this quiet, suburban street be the most dangerous place of all? I guess we're gonna find out. What do you mean? And before we get any further in the video, I want to acknowledge the elephant in the room. I'm at a different filming angle than usual. And that is thanks to today's sponsor, FlexiSpot, who sent me the wonderful, amazing E7L light standing desk. I am already obsessed with this thing. I'm gonna show you like my 2 favorite parts of this is how tall this goes and how smooth it is. So this is about like what my normal like recording height would be, right? This is my chair. Isn't it so cute? You guys never get to see this stuff. This is my chair. Here we go. And then you guys are gonna go to the max height of this. Keep in mind, I'm 5'5". My husband's a little bit over 6 feet. This is perfect for both of us. And look at this, it's not even moving. So this is the height that I was at earlier. And look how much taller it's getting. Hello? Not only do I get a massive workspace over on this side where I'm able to do all of my editing and reading and note-taking and everything like that, I also am able to have my makeup stash actually cleaned and organized and usable. And when it's time to film, I can just move you right over to this corner And here we are, and I can do my makeup. You're just right here. I'll also have the ability to stand up in the middle of these 3-hour-long videos. Less back pain, better posture. I won't be sitting here all like hunched over and slowly sinking in my chair as you guys often see. I get to stand up now, and it's smooth and comfortable. So not only is this desk gorgeous, but it also supports up to 330 pounds, which is a lot of books. Comes with a 15-year warranty, and as we're going into the holidays, don't miss out on FlexiSpot's Black Friday event, where there's going to be major savings on select standing desks and ergonomic chairs. And if you want to be desk twins like me and get the E7L Lite, use the code YTE730 at checkout for an extra $30 off, and I'll have that code up on the screen, as well as some links and other information on screen and in the description box below. There's huge discounts. It is a limited time offer though, so make sure you act fast. And thank you again, FlexiSpot, for sponsoring this video. Before we get into book number 3, I do just want to give you some like context for book 1 and book 2 in case you have not read those books or you haven't watched those videos. I will have a timestamp down below if you are super familiar and you just want to hear about book number 3 though, okay? So skip ahead, whatever the number is on screen or whatever the little time break is down in the block bar or whatever thingy below, okay? In book number 1, we are introduced to Wilhelmina Calloway. She is recently released from prison. She went to prison when she was 17 years old, and she was there for 10 years for, I believe, manslaughter charges. She had murdered a guy who was doing some horrible things to her best friend. I can't remember the exact specifics, but that's what she went to jail for. In book number 1, she is recently released, and she's trying to find a job, and she's having difficulty because she is a felon. Whenever she does finally find one, she is a housemaid for a family that is kind of weird. The wife is really rude, and the husband flirts with her, and long story short, she ends up hooking up with the husband. He tries to divorce the wife and leave the wife for her, like to be with the housemaid, and then plot twist, the husband's actually super abusive, and the wife hired the housemaid to replace her so the husband would have like a new victim, and so the wife could get away. Yep. Plot twist. Millie, the housemaid, kills the husband. Plot twist. The wife hired Millie specifically on purpose, knowing that that would happen, or hoping that that would happen. And the book ends with Millie kind of being hinted at that now she's going to become this like vigilante justice situation where she's going to go and protect other women that are in abusive marriages or abusive situations. Well, that's kind of cool. I love justice. But when we go into book number 2, that's not the case. Book number 2 follows up like 2 years later, apparently after her vigilante stint, and now she's just in school, trying to get her life together yet again, living in an apartment. You know, she's dating some rich guy, and once more, just trying to get her life together. Okay, awesome. She's still trying to get off of the ground. The only thing to note is that in book number 2, there is like a hint that she ended up with the gardener. In book number 1, there was a gardener named Enzo who had helped the wife get out of the abusive relationship, and then he helped Millie get out of the abusive relationship. And throughout book 1, you think that the gardener and the wife will end up together. Apparently not the case. Not sure how, not sure why. Somehow he and Millie, the housemaid, end up together. So there's some hints about that in book number 2. She goes on to be a housemaid for this woman, and then plot twist, the woman is not actually in an abusive relationship. She actually hired Millie to manipulate her to pin the murder of her husband on Millie. It's really, really messy. It's a whole thing. Really what it is that the wife was cheating on the husband, and he wouldn't divorce her, and so she wanted to kill him. It is so convoluted and dumb, and that's really all that you need to know. Millie, the housemaid, ends up not getting blamed for this murder. There's some other stuff that happens, and she escapes this situation. She also breaks up with her super rich lawyer boyfriend guy and ends up going back and getting back with Enzo the gardener, okay? And so when we go into book number 3, Enzo the gardener and Millie the housemaid are now married, and they've got 2 kids, and we're like 12 years into the future. And you're thinking, what? Where did the time go? Why are we missing so much cool stuff? Why do I still care about this woman? What does any of it matter? None of it does. That's the thing. Time is an illusion. Everything's made up. The points don't matter. So our book opens as all of these freaking Freida McFadden books do, with a prologue that is really just the very last chapter of the book. It's just repackaged in the beginning and, you know, given like an anonymous flair on it so that we don't know who done it, but they did it. I'm just going to read you the prologue in case you are unfamiliar. Like, if for some reason this is your first video of mine, hey, or your first time like reading or hearing about Freida McFadden, it is incredibly important that you understand her writing style to really get like the vibe for what we're dealing with here. So I'm going to read you part of the prologue, if not all of it, because it is pretty short. And otherwise, I'm not going to read you very many quotes, and you'll understand momentarily, okay? So this is the prologue. There's blood everywhere. I've never seen so much blood. It's soaking the cream-colored rug, seeping into the nearby floorboards, speckling the legs of the oak coffee table, perfect oval droplets that have made it all the way to the seat of the pale leather sofa, and large rivulets drip down the alabaster wall. And this is the part that I would like to pause and also note that in the prologue of, I believe it was the boyfriend, when describing the girlfriend, there are two references to her pale white and porcelain white skin. There is a lot of emphasis on the whiteness of things, which is just an interesting thing to note. Obviously, in this instance, it's doing it because of the contrast between the blood and the alabaster wall, but it is just something to note. It's endless. If I look hard enough, will I find flecks of blood on the car in the garage, on the blades of grass in the lawn, in the supermarket across town? Even worse, it's all over my hands. Despite the fact that I don't have much time, I'm itching to clean it all up. When there's a stain, especially on the carpet, I was taught that you're supposed to clean it quickly before it sets. Once it dries, the stain will become permanent. Unfortunately, no matter how hard I scrub, it won't do anything for the dead body lying smack in the middle of the pool of blood. I assess the situation. Okay, this is bad. My fingerprints in the house are expected, but the crimson caked into my fingernails and the grooves of my palm... But the crimson caked into my fingernails and the grooves of my palms is less easy to explain. The darkening of the stain on the front of my shirt is not the kind of thing that I can shrug off. I am in deep trouble. If someone catches me, I inspect my hands, weighing the pros and cons of washing off the blood versus getting the hell out of here right now. If I wash my hands, I will waste precious seconds in which I could be caught. If I leave immediately, I'll be walking out the door with blood all over my palms, smearing itself onto everything I touch. And then the doorbell rings. The chimes echo throughout the house as I freeze, afraid to even breathe. Hello? A familiar voice calls out. Please leave, please. The house is silent. The person at the door will realize that nobody is home and decide to come back another time. They have to. If they don't, I'm finished. The doorbell rings again. Go away. Please go away. I'm not one for prayer, but at this point, I'm ready to get down on my knees. Well, I would if doing so wouldn't get blood all over my knees. What the fuck? They must assume nobody's home. Nobody rings a doorbell more than twice. What is... Oh, sorry, I know I'm breaking character so much right now, but, like, this is so bad. But just when I think that there's a chance I might be safe, the doorknob rattles, and then it starts to turn. Oh, no. The door is unlocked. In about 5 seconds, the person knocking will be inside the house. Does it take you 5 seconds to open a door? Do you mean 5 seconds is a really long time, objectively, to twist an unlocked door handle and push it and take a step into a house. 5 seconds is a long time. The person knocking will be inside the house. She will walk into the living room, and then she will see this. The decision has been made. I've got to run for it. There's no time to wash my hands. There's no time to worry about the bloody footprints that I might be leaving behind. I've got to get out of here. I only hope that no one discovers what I've done. I'm so excited to experience this with you guys. You have no idea. And by that, I mean, I'm dreading it. And yeah, I think the only other thing to note is there are 4 parts in this book historically, at least in the like 5 or 6 Freida McFadden books that I've read so far. There's 3. Usually it's 3 parts and about 60 chapters. In this instance, it's 4 parts and 80 chapters. That hurts my soul a lot. That's a lot of pages. That's a lot of numbers. And if I can't count to 60, I definitely can't I can't even talk either. I can't count to 80. So a lot of this is going to be kind of like swaths of summary of like a couple chapters at a time. So I'll touch base with you every now and then and tell you where we're at, but I'm not going to do the whole like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, because I would lose my mind. And I feel like you would too, and I'm not trying to irritate you guys. So let's dive right in. 3 months before our prologue is where the book begins, right? So from where we're starting, 3 months in the future, somebody's gonna get got, okay? So now we're gonna fill in the blanks over the course of 80 chapters. We're gonna fill in the blanks of how we get from point A to point B. So our book opens, and Millie, the housemaid, is now married to Enzo, the gardener. They have 2 beautiful children. They have an 11-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. They have recently moved back to Long Island. They finally were able to get a house. If you are familiar, or maybe you're not, the first book happened in Long Island. She left. She went to the Bronx, got an apartment, was living in that in book number 2. Apparently, her and Enzo stayed in that apartment for like 10 more years. And now finally, they have a house all to themselves. In the first, I'm not exaggerating, 5 chapters of this book are just Millie gushing over this house. Like, oh my God, it has 2 stories. Like, you can go up the stairway and you're still in the same house. And this is ours, and I love it so much, and my son's about to destroy it. And I'm not saying that I love the house more than my son. I would never say that I would love the house more than my son, but if he breaks anything in here, he's going to be grounded until he can grow a mustache. That is like almost a verbatim quote, by the way. But they're getting situated. They pulled out the kids in the middle of school. I think they said it's in like March, like in the middle of the school year. The son is taking it fine. He's like a little grumpy about it, but the daughter, the 11-year-old, is taking it incredibly hard. So they're in the process of moving in, and when doing so, Millie looks outside. They're in like a cul-de-sac, and she looks outside and she looks across the street, and the house across the street, she's looking at the windows, and there's very clearly somebody like looking at her through the blinds or through the curtain. And when they spot Millie, they like slam it closed and like disappear. Oh, awesome. That's not a bad omen at all. Also, what happens in the middle of moving stuff into the house is another neighbor comes over. So there's like the really creepy neighbor across the street that's very like off-putting and unsettling. And then their direct neighbor to like the left of their house is a complete B word. So this woman comes over and she says, "Oh my God, the help you hired is so handsome," talking about Enzo. And this is where I need to unpack and I need to clarify something really quick to you as well, in case you're not familiar with the series. Enzo is Italian, right? In the second book, in the first book, he pretends that he can't speak English to avoid having to have these like housewives flirt with him. But he's like fully Italian. In the second book, he has to go back to Italy because his mom still lives there and she had, I think, a stroke. And so he went back to go and take care of her for like a year and a half or something. And so there's like some weird undertones of the way that Enzo gets talked about that I feel like he was not originally Italian when this book got written. And somebody said, hey bestie author, bestie, maybe let's make him white. You know what I'm saying? It just, I can't put my finger on it. I can't put my finger on why, but I just feel like that conversation happened. So instead of like, I don't know, fixing the character development or fixing the way that this man gets talked about, I feel like they just put like a Band-Aid on it and they said, call him Italian and, move on. The movers are so hot. And Millie says, "That's my husband." And then he comes over, he says hello. Very clearly this woman is flirting with him. The neighbor, the Beezy neighbor, is flirting with him and putting on a show. And she she asks when they're due, saying that Millie is pregnant. Millie is not pregnant. She has not been pregnant for 9 years. But she goes on to talk about how she's proud of her curves and how she's like comfortable in her own skin and she likes the way that she looks, even though this woman makes her feel a little bit insecure. Enzo is completely blind to this entire interaction, and it ends with the woman inviting them over for dinner. She says, "Hey, how about you guys come over to my house tomorrow? Because obviously your kitchen is going to be in disarray. Come over to my house, we'll have some food. Just bring over like dessert, okay? That should be easy enough for you to knock out." She also talks crap about their house. So this woman rolls up to Millie's front yard, says that Millie must be pregnant, insults her house, and flirts with her husband. not where I'm from. I would not. You're not passing go. You're not collecting $200. I'm going to jail. Like, what do you mean? Anyway, so this woman invites them over for dinner, and then she goes, just like storms off. And Millie is just sitting there reflecting on life. And there's some very important key things that I need to bring up to you here, okay? This new woman, this neighbor woman who is, this like very painted to be, she's like a real estate agent. She's painted to be this very like rich boss babe, self-centered, vapid woman who is also childless, like who has chosen to not have children. It's pretty explicitly that she has chosen this lifestyle, and is like very, very vapid, and that she's younger. And then Millie is this older woman who is, frumpy and letting herself go and like has some issues and stuff. And this is like almost an exact opposite of how these people were described in book number 1. In book number 1, Millie at the time was this like hot young thing, and the wife in that instance was this woman who had let herself go, and it made no sense how she ended up with such a hot husband. And now we're like almost revisiting the exact same situation, but kind of reversed. And it's, I would argue, could potentially be intentional from the author, that maybe this is like some deeper, analysis or a deeper, I don't know, commentary on life or commentary on somebody who acts this way, like on Millie as a human being and how things come full circle. And maybe she would like learn a lesson through age and having children, that maybe she just was being like a crappy person 10 years ago, 15 years ago, however long ago now that it was. You know what I mean? But I don't think the author has that much foresight or intention with the writing, but that's a personal opinion. So for dinner on move-in night, they order a pizza and the family is just hanging out. Like I said, the daughter is really, really upset about everything. The son is excited and he asks to get a pet. And there is a quote that is highlighted about him wanting a turtle and her saying no to the turtle. And it was highlighted by like thousands upon thousands of people, and I don't understand why. I feel like there was an inside joke that I missed, or maybe it's something in this book that I missed, but I'm not sure why people loved this turtle quote. They eventually, though, agreed to get him a praying mantis. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. After dinner, the kids go to their own rooms to keep unpacking and to go to sleep, and she and her husband go to their room to unpack and bone. As they're about to do so, she feels watched because there's no blinds. The house has literally no blinds on any of the windows. And she looks outside and she's like, I swear to God, across the street in the pitch black of night into another dark home, I can see a pair of eyeballs. Damn, you got some good vision, girl. It's so funny to me. Anyways, but she's freaked out by feeling like she's just being watched all the time. The next morning, she takes her son out into the cul-de-sac because that's where the bus picks them up. Apparently, it was like spring break when they decided to move, and so this is going to be the first day back at school, and she's just taking her kid to the bus stop. The neighbor across the street, that's the one that's like a little weird and off-putting. She has a son that is her son's age, right? So they both have 9-year-olds, and so they're both at the bus stop together with their boys, and the sons hit it off, and they're going to be like instant BFFs, which is really, really awesome. And the mom asks immediately, hey, is your kid like vaccinated? Does he have all of his shots? Because I don't want our kids hanging out if he's not. And Millie paints this out to be like a really obscenely rude request. And again, I would just like to remind you that this book was written in 2023, and maybe that's not the most obscene request that somebody could ask given that current climate. And I would also like to remind you that Freida McFadden is in fact a surgeon or a doctor of some sort, like in real life. Like that's her full-time job. Yeah, even the first, okay, so I was making sure I was reading that correctly. The first Housemaid was written in 2022, and then the third one was written in 2024. I don't think that's an unreasonable question in the climate today to ask if your child is vaccinated. Hot take, I guess. And Millie also tells the weird mom that they're going over to the snobby neighbor's house tonight for dinner. And the weird mom says, hey, maybe you should like be really careful about that because she's like not a very good person. And also you should like be really careful with your husband being around her. You know what I mean? Yeah. And Millie says, I got it covered. Don't worry about it. She's like, I don't think Enzo would cheat on me. Eventually the bus comes, collects the kids, like the two boys, and then the daughter is there as well. She is, like I said, crying and just not doing very good with this whole move thing, which I feel, God bless. Going to new schools sucks. I think I moved, I don't know how many schools I went to. I think I lost count of how many different schools that I went to growing up. Blows every single time. Never got better. Never, ever, ever got better. I hate reading about that. It makes my heart hurt so bad for these kids. The only other thing to note about this entire interaction is once the kids are on the bus and going to school, the weird mom also critiques Millie, where she's like, I can't believe that you're going to have your kids walk home from school today. There was a kid around here that got kidnapped not that long ago, and you're just going to, you're not keeping a close enough eye on your children, and I can't believe that you work. You have children at home. Like, you're not making enough time for your kids. And Millie is just like, yo, what the hell? Where am I? And why did we move? She's like really, really regretting this move already. But that night, the kids come home from school, and it's okay, right? They made some friends. Everything is going to be just fine. Well, maybe it would be just fine if they didn't have to go over to the freaking snobby neighbor's house for this whole dinner thing. And it just like spirals out of control. Enzo's running late. Millie didn't actually make anything, so she got like an apple pie from the store, and she pops it in the oven real quick so that if it's warm when she brings it over, that maybe the snobby neighbor will believe that she cooked it. In which case, I'm like, I don't know why we're trying to impress somebody. And maybe this is just me. I just can't imagine going out of my way to try to impress somebody who already clearly doesn't like me, or who already very clearly is like on my bad list. I have nothing to prove to you. Like, obviously we're just like incompatible to be human beings in the same room. I can't fathom this idea of Millie trying to like prove herself to this woman. They go over to this woman's house. They knock on the door, and she has a housemaid. Named Martha. And Martha opens up the door, and then she just stands in the door and just stares at them awkwardly, silently. It's incredibly uncomfortable until the snobby neighbor is like, oh, hey guys, come on inside. Come on. Okay. They just kind of like stare at the maid while they walk by. And I'll say Suzette is the snobby neighbor's name, okay? I'm changing my mind about not using names. It's actually irritating me. So Suzette gives them a tour of the house. And also goes on to reveal, it's beautiful, by the way. It's huge, it's gorgeous, everything that Millie could ever want. And Suzette's also like, yeah, and where you're living, your house actually used to be an animal shed. The animal shed for my house. Yours was just like a little bonus shed that they had out back that they just happened to turn into a house. Ugh. Okay. Again. What? Suzette also then goes on to talk about her housemaid Martha, and she's like, yeah, and you know what? One of her families canceled on her. So if you need a cleaner, you can go ahead and just hire her. Like, you should totally hire her. She's really good at her job. And internally, Millie's like, dude, we can't even afford our mortgage payment. We definitely can't afford a cleaner. Like, what? But Enzo, again, oblivious as always, he's like, yeah, totally, thanks. What a good recommendation. Suzette's husband appears, and Millie's first reaction to this is to try to flirt with him to make Suzette jealous. She said, you're flirting with my husband, let me flirt with yours. I would say, how about you flirt with the back of my hand? How about you and I flirt outside in the parking lot? Her teeth can flirt with the curb. What do you want? This is crazy to me. And dinner ends with Enzo, again, Millie's husband, cannot read a room, cannot pick up a vibe. He offers to do landscaping for them. He offers to do landscaping for this hussy that has done nothing but flirt with him all night in front of his wife and children. Okay. They have this dinner. It's very elaborate. It's very fancy. Suzette goes on to like make fun of them for using the incorrect forks. And then they go on to talk crap about the weird neighbor, like the weird mom. Like, talking mad crap about her, which, again, is, like, also so rude and uncalled for, especially if you're brand new to the neighborhood. How about maybe you get to know your neighbors and form your own opinion instead of, like, diving in with the gossipiest person ever? It's just, all of this is just so unbelievable to me. So unbelievable to me. But for dinner, they have this very, very fancy Italian dish that Enzo hasn't had in so long. And it was noted a couple chapters ago how, like, he refuses to eat Italian food in the United States because the U.S. just doesn't do Italian food right. But apparently, Suzette is able to have the most amazing Italian food ever, and he literally cries because it reminds him of home. And then she goes on and she's like, hey, you know how I said that I'm a real estate agent and you're a landscaper? You and I should totally work together. We could like totally share clients and like help each other out. That would be so cool. And dinner ends with, yet again, Millie being made fun of for using the wrong fork. What is this? I don't know what I'm reading. We're on chapter like 9 or 10, by the way. Which, they get home and Enzo realizes that Millie's angry. It takes him until then, probably because he was too busy staring lovingly into the eyes of this woman. And, you know, he's like they're trying to like do stuff. And she hears a weird noise in the house, like a scraping noise. And it made me think of Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton. Blech. Terrible book, by the way. Blech. Horrible book, but there's a lot of scraping and chains and grinding noises that those people hear in the middle of the night. It made me think of it. I had like war flashbacks, bro. Anyway, so she hears these weird noises, and Enzo says, don't worry, babe, it's the house settling. And then they continue to bone. And then I'm just like, okay, so we're just like setting the tone for weird stuff happening. The next morning, Millie wakes up to like somebody knocking at the door, and it's Martha, the housemaid from the other house. Turns out Enzo did hire her. Enzo like already called and got it scheduled for that woman to come over to start cleaning for them. Y'all just moved in. What do you mean you already have a cleaner, for one? And then for two, you guys didn't talk about it before hiring somebody? She already said you guys couldn't afford it. Enzo, do you not understand your own financial situation? Why are you hiring people, right? Like, what is even happening right now? So she calls Enzo to call him out on this, and he's like, no, don't worry. Her rate's not that bad. Like, we can afford it. But yeah, I did hire her. I swear to God, this man. Cut to that afternoon. The kids are back from school, and her son and the weird mom's son from across the street are having a play date. So she's hanging out at weird mom's house, and shocker, she's being weird. She gives them some really disgusting juice. She asks for vaccination records. I don't know why this keeps getting brought up. She asks if the son has lice. And that would offend me, actually. And then goes on to be like, yeah, and I don't know why nobody would buy your house. Like, there's a reason that nobody bought it. And there's a reason that you got it for 10% under asking price. Like, that's really weird. In which case, this is, spoiler, not spoiler alert, a red herring hinting at maybe your house is, haunted. Maybe there's something crazy going on. I don't know what that, I don't know what just came out of me. Yeah, so red herring for that. And then it ends with the weird mom being like, also, by the way, why is your husband over at Suzette's house? That's kind of weird. Like, you should keep an eye on that. And Millie's like, what do you mean my husband's at Suzette's house? That is weird. And so that night when she goes home and she's like brushing her teeth and stuff and Enzo comes back, she asks explicitly, she's like, hey, were you at Suzette's? And he's like, yeah, I was helping to do her yard so that, you know, we can do this whole business partner thing, and then she can, you know, reference or refer me to all of her real estate people. And she's like, okay. But internally, she does not trust Suzette at all, which I think you're underreacting, if anything. You know what I mean? There just needs to be some like transparency or a discussion about her feeling insecure about it or something. But no, none of that happens. She just says, it's fine. And then inside is like festering this like rage and anger. And it's, again, incredibly frustrating. Later that night, though, as everybody's sleeping, she hears that weird scraping noise again, and she goes downstairs, and she can't find the source of it. It, like, stops when she goes down there. And she, again, is just trying to convince herself that it's just the settling of the house. The next day, they are hanging out. Millie is trying to now make Italian dishes for her husband, but she's not a very good cook and, like, keeps burning everything, and it's, like, going really, really crappy. And Enzo has just been gone a lot for work. He's running his own business, right? And they're in a new area and he's trying to establish it. And he's just like not home at all. And so one of the byproducts of that is this particular day, the son is outside playing baseball with himself or practicing baseball by himself. I don't know. Don't ask me. What does that look like? Don't look at me. And there's a crashing noise because he ended up like throwing the baseball into a window of Suzette's house. Of course, of all of the houses that this kid could have hit, he hit Suzette's. Window smashes. And so Millie takes her son and they walk over there so he can knock on the door and tell them what happened. And turns out it was a stained glass window, like a really, really expensive window. And she begins freaking out because she can't afford that. Like, we can't afford to be replacing that. And so in lieu of that, they offer to have the son do chores at their house to pay for it, right? It'll help teach him a lesson, give him some community service type hours, and earn his keep or something. So if he just goes and helps out at Suzette's house, they'll be considered even or whatever. In chapter 15, there is a little bit of discussion about like Millie's job as a social worker. She was helping kids until like the trauma of all of the kids that she was working with became a little too much for her, like emotionally, because it is a lot, right? That is a lot for a human being to go through. And so she eventually gets transferred and she begins working to do like hospital social work. And on one of the days there, one of the old ladies that she's helping that has dementia accuses her of stealing her medication. This sends Millie on a spiral because I guess this is the establishment, in case people read this book like as a standalone, that Millie had gone to prison. So they go on to explain. I don't know. Don't ask me. Anyway, she looks pale. And so the nurse that's there decides to take her blood pressure to make sure that she's okay. And the blood pressure is really, really high. And so the nurse tells her, hey, babes, don't stress. Hey, babes, how about you calm down a little bit? That's so helpful. That's so helpful. And you're sitting here and you're thinking, why does this matter? Why does this blood pressure thing matter? Well, it matters because when she tells Enzo about it that night at dinner, his first response is that they should get life insurance policies. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he says, yeah, Suzette brought it up. You know, she recommended that we get life insurance policies. What are you talking about? And that's her reaction. Later that same night, right after they have this life insurance discussion thing, after she puts the kids to bed, she's, hanging out for a while, and then she looks out the window, and in the backyard at 10 p.m. at night, her husband is talking to Suzette. And she just decides to go to bed. She just notes how suspicious this is and then just like doesn't confront him, doesn't do anything. She's just like, oh, okay, that's weird. Couldn't be me. In chapter 18, Millie wakes up to the sound of what she thinks is somebody breaking into her home. So she is like, okay, oh my God, I need to call 911 right now. Her husband is next to her, by the way. And it literally says in the text, she's like, he came home so late last night that I didn't have a chance to talk to him about being in the backyard with Suzette, but now that's the last thing on my mind. Is it? Because that's the first thing you said when you introduced Enzo into the scene. So I don't think that that's true, but that's fine. So she wakes up Enzo and she's like, Enzo, I'm going to call 911. There's somebody in the house. And he says, no, it's Martha, the cleaning lady. I gave her a key to our home so she can just come in whenever she needs to clean and doesn't have to wake you up. Because it's like 6 a.m. on a Sunday. She says, oh, okay. But she can't sleep because, I don't know, she's like unsettled or whatever now. And so eventually she goes downstairs to try to figure out where Martha is, because assumably she would be in the kitchen. But she's not. She's in Millie's office, and she's kind of in the corner by her desk, and it's really weird, and it kind of looks like she's snooping through some stuff. And Millie gets really suspicious that maybe this woman is here, hired by Suzette, to spy on her. I don't know. Why is that the assumption? Maybe you're just a little bit paranoid. Who knows? But she leaves the room feeling very unsettled and wanting to fire Martha. Martha said, by the way, that she was digging through the desk to find like a sticky note to leave her a note that they're like out of some cleaner solution or something. So she leaves the room trying to move on, and then almost steps on glass because there's like a broken vase on the floor. And she's like, Martha, what the hell is this? You're just breaking stuff and not telling us? I could have cut my foot. And Martha says, I didn't do that. I don't know what you're talking about. It becomes a whole thing where she like accuses her of lying. Eventually Enzo has to come downstairs, and turns out it was the son. Like the son broke it in the middle of the night and just decided to not tell anybody about it. I don't know. He's all nonchalant about it and acting really weird. And then Martha says, you know what? Actually, I don't like being accused of being a criminal. She says it with like really weird tonal change and like eye contact with Millie that makes Millie think, oh my God, does she know about my criminal history? Does she know that I'm a felon? Because I don't want anybody to know my secret past. My secret past. That's how it gets talked about in like all of these freaking books, by the way. That's like her like default thought about everything. I don't want anyone to know about my secret past. Literally how it gets like repeatedly presented for like what, 1,000 pages at least between the 3 books. well, 3.5 technically. There's like a half book about them getting married that I'm not going to read you. Regardless, they kind of move on. They apologize for accusing Martha of breaking the vase, and everybody goes about their way. Going about their way, meaning Millie eventually ends up at like the doctor's office. She has like a follow-up with her primary care doctor about the whole high blood pressure stuff. And same thing, the doctor says, hey babes, chill. How about you meditate? How about you chill out? Stop stressing. She has blood pressure medication, but he does give this advice as well, which just is so funny to me. And when she gets home from the doctor's, Suzette's husband says, hey, I don't want your son coming over and helping anymore. He's not allowed in my home anymore. Oh, okay, that's fine. And then he doesn't ask for money to replace the window either, which is also kind of weird, but Millie's happy about this because, again, she doesn't know how expensive this was. Assumably incredibly expensive. So she's grateful that this guy's not trying to get money. So grateful, in fact, that she decides to flirt with him because, if his wife can flirt with my husband, then I should be able to flirt with him. And yet again, I ask myself, in what universe would this actually happen? It doesn't work. It does not work, by the way. And she looks up into the house, and Suzette is clearly watching them. And when, again, time is an illusion. I don't know. Eventually, whatever. Millie comes home from work one night, and Enzo's car is in the driveway, but nobody's inside of the house. The kids aren't in the house. Enzo's not in the house. They're absolutely nowhere. And so she's like, okay, well, I'm trying not to panic here. They have to be here. They have to be here somewhere if his truck is here. So she texts him, she calls him, she's yelling for him. Absolutely no answer. And so she's like, okay, well, maybe I should call the cops. And then she's like, okay, well, maybe that's a little bit overreacting. So if his truck's here, then he's got to be on foot. I wonder where he could possibly be. And so she goes to Suzette's house, the snobby neighbor that keeps flirting with her husband. She says, you know what? I wonder if my husband's over there. And wouldn't you know it, he is. He's in her backyard, but neither of the children are. And so she's like, Enzo, where are the kids at? And he's like, I don't know. I thought you had them. And she's like, I literally just got home from work. And so then he talks crap to her about running late. And she's like, what? If you would have gone inside, you would have known I wasn't at here. We would have known I wasn't home, and you would have known that the kids are missing. What is even happening right now? So then the three of them, Millie, her husband, Suzette, so they go back into the house trying to find the kids, right? Eventually, they end up, there's this weird doorway. There's the wallpaper is really, really messed up, and they see this small doorway under the stairwell. So they pop it open, they look in there, and yeah, it's like a room under the stairway, like a Harry Potter-esque style room. And the kids are in there. The kids are in this dusty little thing in the corner, all huddled up together, as if that's not creepy as all get out. And they're like, hey, kids, what the heck? Why didn't you say anything when I called your name? And they said they didn't hear you, that it was soundproofed or something, which is kind of odd. And so the kids eventually come out of the room, and Millie sees that the daughter looks like she's been crying, but they're just going to move on from it, I guess. Just whatever, promise kids that you're not going to go in this room anymore. It's claustrophobic, and Millie is triggered because of the whole attic thing from book number 1 where she got locked in there, and also being in prison. She's very, very claustrophobic. And so the idea of this tiny room really, really freaks her out, but she doesn't really want to admit that. But that's why she's very, very anti this space. And so that evening, Enzo is stuck to the kids like Velcro because he thought that he had lost them. So they end up playing together, and they're hanging out, and everything's all great, super happy family stuff. But once the kids go to bed, Enzo pulls her aside and he says, hey, I think that we really should finish that room. She says, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're not doing that. And he's like, yeah, but Suzette. And she says, Suzette, you bring up that, she doesn't say this, but I wish she would. She's like, you bring up that Beezy's name one more time, I swear to God. But she does finally confront him about being in Suzette's yard at 10 p.m. at night. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe it was about a rose bush that she wanted. You don't know when you were in the backyard talking to a lady at 10 at night? And he's like, I don't think it was that late. And 10 o'clock's not a late time to be talking about rose bushes. And Millie is thinking to herself, yeah, maybe not for somebody who runs around at all hours of the day. And I'm just so confused about everything that's happening right now, but it doesn't matter. The fact is that the next day when she comes home from work, the house smells like glue because Enzo picked up on the whole claustrophobia thing and her not liking that room because it was traumatic for her. And so he has like wallpapered over it, and the smell of glue is like the wallpaper glue because he like covered it up and sealed the room shut. Cut to however much time passes. I guess it's 3 months, right, total from the start of this book to the crime scene thing from the prologue. So I don't know, a day or two, the next day. Sure. She gets a phone call from the principal of the school, and he says, hey, you need to come down to the school. It's about Nico. He's fine, he's alive, but like, you need to come to the school. Nico is the son. Nico punched the kid because he was making fun of a girl. Like the other kid was making fun of a girl, so the son punched him in the face. Respect. That's Enzo's response. Enzo's like, okay, so why is my son in trouble if he was defending somebody? The principal says, I mean, yes, the other kid's behavior wasn't very good, but your son also can't just go around punching people. So he's suspended for the rest of the week. You say, okay. And Millie drives home with the son because she doesn't want him to be with Enzo because she feels like Enzo's just going to like praise the kid, which is kind of what happens. Like Enzo's opinion of it, right? Keeping in mind, if you don't have context or remember, Enzo came to America. Boo, it's editing, Kaylee. I messed up the way that I talked about this. So Enzo's sister was in an abusive marriage. Her husband eventually killed her. And Enzo has always felt incredibly guilty that he wasn't able to help his sister or save her or like get her out of that relationship before it was too late. So he carries a lot of guilt about this. That's why he's all about saving women and protecting women. And he came to the United States to get away from that because he didn't kill the guy, but he definitely like maimed the guy. You know what I mean? Okay, so for him, he's like, hey man, I'm all about protecting women. I love protecting women. Hence also in book number 1, him saving the wife, him saving Millie. The whole vigilanteism thing that he like went on, that was him helping Millie save women and protect women. Like he's all about it. So as far as he's concerned, he's like, my son's doing the right thing. I'm not sure what the issue is here at all. And Millie, I sure as hell don't know why you have a problem with it. You're one to talk. You are also Miss Vigilante Justice over here. I don't know what your issue is. Millie's issue is that maybe her kids have inherited like a criminal gene and they're going to be bad kids. Just like, okay, I kind of see like both sides of the concern here. So everybody's kind of sad at dinner. It's kind of awkward. And she tucks the kids into bed. And when she does, she finds out that the son's praying mantis had died and that the son had just flushed it down the toilet. And then she's alarmed by that because she's like, I figured he would have had a lot more emotion. Like he really, really wanted this praying mantis and he was like obsessed with the thing. I thought that we were going to have like a whole memorial service and have like a stone in the backyard for remembrance of this thing. Like, I don't know why he's acting like he doesn't care about it. I'm really, really concerned. It ends up turning into her like Googling traits of like child psychopaths. And she's like, oh my God, there's so much stuff here. I think my son might be, troubled. I think there's bigger issues here. He needs to go to therapy. And her husband, Enzo, is very anti-therapy. He's like, you Americans and your mental health. He's fine. He's just being a little boy. That's just what boys do. Okay, I guess. We also find out that Enzo is missing $50 from his drawer. He asks Millie if she took it. She says, no, I bet it was Martha, though. I'm already like, I thought she was taking stuff the other day. Pretty sure she probably took your $50 as well. But he just blows her off and he's like, maybe I already spent it or I moved it or something. It's okay. Wouldn't you know it though? The next day, when Millie goes to work, she realizes that she forgot her phone. So she doubles back and she returns home to get it. And this happens to be on a cleaning day of Martha's. And she not that she intentionally sneaks up on her, but Martha wasn't expecting anybody to be home and she was in the middle of vacuuming, so she didn't hear Millie enter the house. But when Millie comes into the bedroom where her phone is on the charger and she opens the door, Martha is in there digging through her drawers, like her jewelry drawer, and watches her. Millie watches Martha pocket one of her necklaces. And she notes, it's not like a real diamond, but it's sentimental and it's still worth a lot in that regard. And this is really messed up that she pocketed it. So she confronts Martha. She says, hello? Martha says, oh my God, I didn't know you were here. Millie says, empty your pockets. And Martha says, you've already accused me once of something. I quit. You can't embarrass me this way, and tries to storm out. And they like almost throw hands about it. Eventually she gets the necklace back. And then Martha said, so she gives the necklace back. And then she says, oh, hey, Millie, by the way, if you tell Suzette about this, I'm going to tell her about you. I'm going to tell her about your criminal past. Because remember, like I said earlier, but my past, I don't want anybody to know about my past. Yeah, Martha knows. Martha knows, and she threatens to tell everybody. And so Millie is like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to tell anybody, but also, how do you know that? Don't worry about it. Just know that I do, and I'll tell if you tell. Okay. Martha leaves, her hands clearly shaking. And there is just weirdness all around. And that evening, when Enzo finds out that Millie fired Marcia, he's very surprised by this. Martha, he's very surprised by this. And, like, he's like, why would she be stealing stuff? That doesn't make any sense. Like, she has a bunch of really well-paying clients. And if she was going to steal, why wouldn't it be from somebody that actually has money, like somebody rich with actual good stuff? She's over here stealing your fake diamond necklace when she could steal Suzette's actual jewelry, and she would probably never notice because she has so much of it. Like, that's weird. There's weird stuff happening here. And it ends up with Enzo being like, I'm so sorry, Millie. You know, I'll keep, you know, grinding at the business and doing what I can to make money for the family, and I'll try harder for us. She says, okay, it's okay. We'll be fine. And then again wonders if it was worth it. If moving from the Bronx to Long Island is it the Bronx? If moving out to Long Island was worth it. It happens so often that she's questioning. Almost every chapter, literally for each of these, every, like, I don't know, 5-10 chapters, I go back and I try to, like, speed read some of the chapters or see if there's any quotes that I want to pull and just, you know what I mean, like, refresh a little bit. 80 is a lot of chapters to keep up with, you know? And so I'll go back and, like, read through them, and it's so repetitive. The writing in this is, I cannot reiterate that enough to you, how much gets repeated. Like, if you took out all of the sentences that are said at least 3 times, I think you could probably take out like a third of the book. It is so freaking ridiculous, dude. And the bad times just keep getting worse, because when they go to Nico's Little League game, he's still suspended from school, so it's like the same week and whatnot, but I guess this is like a not school-sponsored function. And they're in the middle of the game. He hits the ball. There's a bad call from the ref or from the whoever, and they say that he's out. And in response, he punches the kid on first base in the stomach. Oh, so now he's kicked off of that team. And this time, there is no justification for his violent actions. Enzo can't really defend it and be like, he did it to protect a woman thing. Now it's like, no, your kid's just, like, violent. Like, you need to address that. You know what I mean? Like, your kid just has, like, issues regulating his emotions here. Like, you need to do some work, you know? Maybe therapy is a thing. Okay, that's okay, right? So they have the even further discussion and argument and feeling like, you know, maybe my kid is a psychopath and Enzo not taking it seriously and just, I don't know, bad vibes, right? Chapter 33 is a really weird one that just goes to establish more about Suzette and how much of, like, a jerk she is. She confronts Millie in, like, the front yard area about having the trash cans out too early and how ugly they are to look at the trash. And so she asks if they can bring the cans to the curb later in the day so she doesn't have to look at how unsightly it is. And then this plumber comes up. This plumber guy had been at Millie's house previously to fix something, and he's coming back because the check bounced. So he says, hey, you need to, like, pay me. She says, oh my God, I'm so sorry. There should have been enough money in that account. I don't know why that would have bounced. Like, I can go to the ATM real quick if you want to come with me. We can figure something out. And Suzette, standing there, she says, actually, I think I have the cash for it inside. She goes inside, grabs, like, a wad of money, hands it over to the guy, and pays for Millie's plumbing issue. And she says, thank you so much, Suzette. I promise I'll pay you back every penny. Oh, take your time. She toys with the diamond bracelet on her wrist, which glints in the sunlight. Honestly, Jonathan and I have more money than we know what to do with. You can't even imagine how much we pay in taxes. Way to rub it in my face. I don't want Suzette to think of me as some impoverished charity case racking up debts all over town, and I especially dislike the idea of owing anything to her. Technically, we never paid her for the broken window, but that was different because Nico agreed to do chores. I'll pay her back today if I can, except, can I? I thought we had more than enough money in the checking account to cover the plumbing bill, but obviously we don't. Where did the money go? Enzo and I always discuss large purchases. He wouldn't have just taken the money out without telling me, would he? So, She goes back inside. She checks her little bank account where there was more than $1,000 a couple of days ago, and now it's down to $213. And she calls the bank and she says, "Hey, what's going on?" And finds out that Enzo withdrew $1,000 in cash earlier in the week. In cash, you say? So she calls Enzo and she says, "Hey, buddy boy, hey, you got some splaining to do." He says that he had to replace some equipment for the business, and he was hoping that he would be able to, put the money back in the account before it ever got noticed. And he apologizes. And she's starting to kind of question everything. She's like, okay, I'm going to believe him. I'm choosing to believe my husband, but something's weird. Something's not adding up here. Okay. Everything is just like bad vibes, right? Just weird, bad vibes. And that night, she hears her son sneaking out of the house. So she confronts him and she's like, "Hey, WTF, 9-year-old, where do you think you're going?" He says he's going across the street to the weird mom's house to play with her 6-year-old or her 9-year-old son. Okay. All right, I guess. I don't know why you're sneaking out, though. If you're allowed to go over there, like if she's okay with you guys playing in the backyard, then I don't know why you're being weird about it. So she lets him go, which I feel like maybe not. How about if your kid, I guess he might still be grounded for all the violent stuff. In which case, keep him grounded. Or confront him about trying to be sneaky and lying to you guys. Feel like letting that child out of the house was the worst of all possible outcomes. When she comes back, and she's going around, and eventually she finds Enzo, and she sees that he's talking on the phone, and he's like whispering on the phone, and he's got this big old smile on his face. And she says, "Hey, buddy boy, what are we doing here? What is this? What's going on?" And he's like, "Oh my God, I just got the most lucrative job offer. Suzette is going to hook me up. She found this really big thing, and she wants me to go and meet her on the beach with some clients so that we can finalize this deal. And then I'll be making so much money, and I'll finally be able to take care of the family." And Millie is like, "Enzo, you don't ever spend time with our family. You're always hanging out with the snotty neighbor that clearly is infatuated with you or at least wants to bone you. Can you please not? You don't ever spend time with us on the weekends, and now you're going to go to the beach? We're going to come with you. Me and the kids, we're going to come with you." And Enzo's just like, no, we're going to come with you. Me and the kids, we deserve to go to the beach. We've never been to the beach. We haven't been to the beach in so long. I don't remember which. It's one of those two, though. She's like, "We deserve to go, so we're going to go." "Okay, yeah, we're going." Okay. And he's like, "I don't think Suzette will like that." And Millie's like, "Good. I hope she doesn't." In which case, I also get, hey, again, understood. Suzette is kind of crappy. But also, if this is a legitimate work thing, this is a legitimate work meeting, your husband is finally getting an opportunity where he can, do all of these things that he's been wanting to do and support you guys so fully, how about you not make it weird? You could completely now, if they're meeting with other clients and stuff, and you just happen to bring along your kids and wife to this thing, now you're just jeopardizing this opportunity. But also, who meets at the beach in New York to make a business deal? Is that a thing? Where y'all even got a beach at? I don't know. It's just weird. The whole situation, everything in this book is weird and makes no sense. They go to the beach as a family. It's like a secret private thing that only Suzette and her other rich elite friends have access to. So it's even weirder that Enzo is showing up here with his wife and kids. And he's driving them, and he's going 20 miles over the speed limit, driving reckless with the children and wife in the car, right? I would be pissed. Super not cool. I don't understand any of this. They end up getting pulled over, and then he turns on the charm and then makes his accent even heavier, his Italian accent even heavier, to try to get out of this ticket, and it works. And then Millie's sitting there, and she's like, "I always knew my husband was so charming and such a good liar, but I'm starting to think maybe he's lying to me too." Okay. It's so dumb. And so, long story short, and I need to start going faster because this is taking so long, and we're just barely under the 50% mark. They go to the beach, each. And it's awkward and it's weird, and there's weird tension, and everybody hates each other, and Suzette's husband is there, and they go into the water. Suzette gets pulled under the water. She ends up almost drowning. And so Enzo picks her up and carries her out all heroically. And she's like, "Oh, you saved me. Thank you so much. I almost died. But before that, actually, I did forget about this part, that genuinely, this is when this would have been the final nail in the coffin for this woman. Millie is putting sunscreen on the kids, and then Suzette's like, oh my God, that sunscreen's so crappy. Here's my 200 SPF, like wonderful lotion. You should use this instead. And then Suzette, rubs sunscreen on Enzo. On Enzo's bare body, rubs in the sunscreen. With his wife right there. I'll spray you. I'll use spray on you. I ain't touching you. No, you're not. And nope. That's so weird to me. No. And then this happens where she's like, damsel in distressing in the water, and he like saves her and carries her out like fireman style. But yeah, Suzette starts talking about how she felt somebody or something grab her leg and pull her under, and how scary it was. And so Enzo takes her to the car, carries her all the way across the beach to the car, and Millie is left behind trying to collect all of the, the towels and the beach toys and everything, and the children, so that they can like trek their way back up the beach to also get to the car. And it's just like bad vibes all around. And so that night when everybody gets home, she's upset and she's like moping around the house about it, and Enzo doesn't understand why she's upset, like, at all. They have a whole back and forth about it, whatever. Enzo's just like completely ignorant to the ways of women and women jealousy, right? But she was also like, hey, so for real, if she got pulled under, Nico was over there and he looked at her kind of weird before all that was happening. Like, there was definitely some weird vibes going on. Do you think Nico did it? And Enzo's like, no, dude, Nico wasn't even by her. What are you even talking about? Like, it might have been seaweed, or maybe it was one of the other kids, but like, Nico was off to the side. I don't know why you would say that. Like, you need to calm down. Your blood pressure, you're fine. And she's like, there's bigger problems than my blood pressure. She wakes from a nightmare eventually at some point. I don't know. Don't ask. Don't look at me. She wakes up from a nightmare feeling like she's drowning, and she starts flailing. And then she wakes up from it and she's like trying to find Enzo because she's looking for comfort. She can't find him. His side of the bed is empty. And she goes downstairs and his truck is gone as well. Eventually he comes home and she's back upstairs and stuff. And she's like, hey, where were you? And he's like, oh, I just went to go get water. Oh, but babe, you're fully dressed. And then he goes on to say, oh, I went for a drive. I couldn't sleep very well. And then she thinks that she smells perfume on him and still lets it go. And so she, comes to the conclusion, like, okay, I guess maybe maybe he's cheating on me. She's trying to justify, him not being in their bed and any of these other circumstances. And she just can't. Like, there's not a reason or justification for anything that was happening. And so when she comes home from work one day, and we're back to kind of the similar thing that we had before. His work truck is there. The kids should be there, and their shoes are all like strewn about in the hallway, and it's kind of weird, and his work boots are gone, but his truck is here. So she's like, this mother effer, he's at her house, like right now, actively cheating on me. So she rushes over to that house, to Suzette's house, and she's like banging on the door, ringing the doorbell, and no one is answering. And so she like tries to open the door, and it's unlocked. And so she goes inside, and she smells blood. And in the living room, Jonathan is dead on the floor with his throat slit. And if you're saying, Kaylee, who the fuck is Jonathan? I love introducing characters this way. Jonathan is Suzette's husband. Suzette's husband is dead on the floor, dead on his living room floor, throat slit, which is a very violent way to go. Covered in blood, obviously, pooled blood around him, which is kind of what happened in the prologue, remember? Interesting. So Millie starts panicking. Like, dude's obviously dead. And so she tries to call 911, or goes to call 911, and realizes she doesn't have her cell phone. And so she rushes home to try to call the police. But when she goes inside of her house, she hears the water running in the kitchen. And it's Enzo washing blood off of his hands. And he's like, yeah, I cut my hand on like the clippers, like, like he was trimming like bushes or something, and cut his hand that way. And that's why he was bleeding. But Millie doesn't see a cut, and there's also blood on his shirt. And so she tells Enzo, like, hey, Jonathan is dead, and he acts surprised, and Millie is still suspicious of him, but she hears police sirens coming. And so she tells him to go and get changed. What? Hello? Yeah, cops are there. Everything's going on. Suzette comes home from work. The cops tell her that her husband is dead. She falls to the ground. She's crying and stuff. But Millie's looking and she's like, I don't think this, I think she's faking it, actually. She doesn't look sad at all. She doesn't seem sad at all about her husband's death. And she looks over at Enzo's hand and she sees like the cut maybe that he was talking about, but it's like pretty little. And he tells her, you know, that cuts on hands, they bleed like a lot, like profusely. There's just a lot of blood that comes from those types of cuts. And she doesn't really believe him, but they agree that they're not going to tell the police about the blood that was all over him earlier. Probably smart idea. Not going to lie. Probably a good idea. And then obviously like the lead police chief of like, you know, investigating this murder thing comes over and talks to them. And it turns out that the weird neighbor lady, she's the one that had called the cops because she had heard yelling and then called the police, and that she admits, or she like tells the cops that she saw Millie run into and then leave the house immediately. So she can like corroborate that Millie did not kill this guy. So, okay, cool. But also the weird neighbor told them about how Enzo sure did frequent that house and how he would often go in and out of Suzette's house whenever her husband wasn't home. And so Millie's like, my husband's not having an affair. My husband did not have an affair with that woman. I don't know what the weird neighbor's saying. Cop says, okay, I need to interview Enzo now. And he looks like he's filled with dread. You know, that night they tell the kids what's going on about Jonathan being dead. The daughter, she bursts into tears crying, but the son does not react at all, which is very alarming to Millie. When they go to bed that night, Enzo promises Millie that he did not hurt Jonathan and he definitely is not cheating on her with Suzette. She says, I believe you, babe, but she's lying. They eventually get called to come down to the police station for like more formal questioning, and they send the kids off to school. The kids don't want to go to school, but she makes them. There gets to be some weird comments where we find out that the son was not actually sneaking out to go and play with the weird neighbor's kid. He was doing something else. And so Millie says, hey kid, what were you actually doing then? And he's like, I was just sneaking out just to play by myself. I just wanted to play outside. And before she can question him any more than that, the bus comes. And so he has to get on the bus and go to school. And now she has to go to the police station, right? There's like a whole bunch of other side stuff that doesn't really matter. But what does matter is at the police station, one of the officers pulls Millie aside specifically and says, hey, you're not a suspect, but it's important that you know that your husband used that $1,000 that he pulled from the ATM to illegally buy a gun and check into a motel with Suzette 4 days ago. What? What? Police officer also goes on to talk about how Suzette had pulled out like a pretty big life insurance policy on Jonathan, and you know the payout of such goes directly to Suzette. And so, you know, I'm thinking that maybe what happened is that Enzo killed Jonathan to get Suzette that money so that they could run away together and, you know, have their little affair thing, and she'd make money and blah, blah, blah. And Millie refuses to speak anymore without a lawyer. So she's able to go. And then Enzo has to be questioned for like 3 more hours. Eventually, he's let go as well, and they head home. And she says, hey, buddy boy, again. What the fuck is happening? What's going on here? Because I feel like I'm losing my mind. He says, baby, baby, baby. It's nothing like that. It's nothing like that, I promise. I'm not cheating on you. I'm not, I swear. Hear me out. Hear me out. This is what's happening. So, what had happened? He was at that motel. He says, yes, the motel happened. Yes, the gun happened. Yes, all of that did. But it wasn't with Suzette. I got that motel room for Martha. And I know I smelled like Suzette's perfume, and that's because I'm pretty sure she stole, or maybe she was given, Suzette's perfume. And so Martha smells like her. But I was saving her because her husband is physically abusive. And so I got her the gun for her protection. I got her the motel, I met her at the hotel and paid for that so she would have somewhere safe to go. And that's like part of her plan to leave. But after she got caught stealing, it's not like she could ask Millie for help. Turns out like Martha was stealing extra stuff to make money on the side because her husband would take like all of her paychecks and stuff. And so she was stealing to have additional money that she could like hide from her husband in order to escape. And all of the weird times that like Enzo was talking to Suzette like late in the night, apparently it was because he was trying to talk her into not firing Martha and trying to convince her that Martha wasn't stealing from her. Not sure how that adds up, but sure, I guess. And Millie is like, hey, we did that together. Like, we helped save women, and like, you know that I'm all about that stuff. So like, why didn't you tell me? Now you just were shady and weird for so long. Like, why weren't you just honest with me? And he's like, your blood pressure, babe. Your blood pressure. I didn't want to stress you out anymore. Like, I didn't want to freak you out. And she's like, well, you keeping secrets actually made my blood pressure significantly worse. And, you know, he apologizes, and she still feels like there's still something going on. He's still hiding something. By the way, we went into part 2 when they found the body. I forgot to tell you that. I forgot that was like the transition. The part 1 cliffhanger was her finding the body. And if you're starting to check out, if you're starting to get a little bored of the story, I am too, but it's about to go sideways really, really fast, okay? So I need you to lock in real quick. I need you to come back and wake up, okay? They have a detective friend on the force, and I believe this is the guy that got referenced at the very end of book number 2. There was a cop that pulled Millie aside and said, hey, I know what you do for women. If you ever need help with anything, hit me up, you know, give me a call, whatever. And that particular guy made a reappearance in this book. And so he's giving him kind of like side advice almost. Like this detective is just like randomly showing up and being like, hey guys, just want you to know this is where a case stands, which seems like highly illegal. But he tells them straight up what I said earlier of the assumption and what the police believe happened is that Enzo murdered Suzette's husband because Suzette has an alibi. She was literally at work, and, you know, the weird neighbor lady has a bunch of pictures of him going into Suzette's house and her flirting with him and them talking and, you know, all this other stuff. And so, yeah, that's the running theory. And so they're going to try to like pin all of this on Enzo. And so don't worry, guys. I got you the best public defender there is. And guess who it is? It's Cecilia Winchester. And if you're saying, Kaylee, who in the F is Cecilia Winchester? It's the like 8-year-old girl from book number 1. The little creepy girl from book number 1 that Millie hated and like really freaked her out. Turns out homegirl grew up to be a lawyer. Now she's a public defender. And now it's all coming back around. So we get a reappearance. We get a good callback, I guess, to her and building this defense for them. Now it's just trying to give like reasonable doubt. We get more backstory about like Enzo's sister. Again, I think some of this is just to fill in some blanks if like you had never read the other books, but it doesn't really matter. It's just the other reason that the cops think that he's guilty is because of his like associations with the Italian mob when he was a kid. I don't know. Don't look at me that way. For some reason that night, Millie decides that she's going to try to go into Suzette's house or like enter the house from the backyard, because if you enter through the backyard, the weird neighbor can't see and can't take pictures and stuff. And so there is a sneaky way to get into the house. And so if she can do that, if she can prove that there is a second entrance into the house, then that means that Suzette could have done it. Somebody else could have done it. They could have snuck in and escaped. And that's how this all happened, right? And maybe that can be the reasonable doubt thing. So she goes over there to try and prove this. You know, she's got her little sneakers on, she's got her little flashlight, and she's back there rooting around this woman's house, and Suzette catches her and she says, hey, WTF are you doing in my yard? She's like, oh, I don't know, I heard a weird noise. Okay. Suzette is like, dude, I'm pretty sure your husband killed my husband, and also he's obsessed with me and ridiculous, and he only married you because you were pregnant. And Millie says, what the hell was that for? Why would you say that? And how do you know that? Like, how would you even know that? That's such a weird thing to say unless Enzo said that to you. And so now we're getting like more and more validation to her that maybe Enzo really is cheating on her or was cheating on her with Suzette or something. I don't freaking know. Back and forth, wishy-washy bull crap. The next morning, the police come with a search warrant for Millie and Enzo's house. And so they wake up the kids, and they're going to take the kids to breakfast while the police search the entire place. You know, just reassuring her, and they're just reassuring the kids that everything's going to be okay. She drops the kids off at school, and then instead of going to work, she decides that she wants to try to verify that what Enzo told her was true. So she somehow finds out Martha's address and goes to it and knocks on the door. And this like really, really belligerent man answers it, and she says, hey, I'm returning Martha's coat. And he says, Martha's gone, and then slams the door. And Millie says, Oh my God, I'm so glad that he was able to get her out of the situation. Maybe Enzo's not lying to me. And again, wishy-washy BS this entire book, I swear to freaking God. So they return to the house. It's absolutely trashed. And Millie confronts Enzo about the whole marrying her because she was pregnant thing. And he says, I never would say that. She probably just did the math between like how long that we have been married and how old our kid is. Okay, I guess maybe that could have happened. And then Cecilia, the lawyer public defender, she says, hey, the cops are pretty sure that they found what they considered to be a slam dunk. Like, I haven't heard anything about an arrest warrant yet, but I've heard some other things. So just heads up, guys, that this might be happening. But we'll get through this, I promise. Okay. Right? To try to get through the day. Try to be normal. Everything seems to be okay until bedtime when Millie is tucking the son in. And the son says, hey, Mom, does doing a bad thing make someone a bad person? Millie says no. They go on to have a very philosophical discussion about what makes bad people, or like the definition of like a bad person, right? And there seems to be something else that like Nico wants to say. Nico being the son, he wants to say, or he wants to ask, but he can't because Enzo comes in to like finish the bedtime stuff, the bedtime routine. Okay. The next morning, Millie's making pancakes for the family and relaxing and stuff. And then Cecilia, the public defender, she comes and she rings the doorbell. And she says, hey, the police are on their way here to arrest Enzo. The evidence, the slam dunk that they found, whenever they were searching the house, they found a knife with Enzo's initials on it. And there was traces of Jonathan's blood on it as well. Oh, no. And I don't know what it is about initials in this book, or in this series, because there was the tennis bracelet with initials also that, like, got Millie in trouble. So it's just, I feel like we're just, like, repeating a lot of stuff here, you know? Anyway, so this knife, the initials, the blood. Enzo hears this, and then he says, okay, I confess, I killed Jonathan. Everybody says, what the frick? Cecilia and Millie specifically are like, Enzo, what the are you saying right now? He says, yeah, I when the cops get here, I'll confess. Like, I'll tell them that I did it. Hello? No, what is even happening? So Millie rushes the kids upstairs so that they won't see their father get arrested. And as the police take him away, you know, he's like kisses Millie and he tells her that he loves her. And, you know, Cecilia says that like she'll do everything she can to get to, I don't know, make things okay, I guess. But there's obviously something we're missing. We're missing a piece to this puzzle. This is so crazy. This is so ridiculous. I don't know why all of a sudden he's confessing to this, you know, blah, 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 blah. And so when Millie goes back upstairs, she goes to try to comfort the kids and maybe try to talk to them about what happened. And the daughter is on her bed, like sobbing uncontrollably. And Millie goes over to her, you know, she's like rubbing her back, you know, trying to comfort her. She's, baby, it's okay. And let me just read you. Okay, Millie says, it's okay. I stroke her hair again. It's gonna be okay. I don't know who I'm trying to convince. If I'm trying to convince her, it's not working. And I'm not convincing myself either. I should just shut up. Ada shifts on the bed, turning to me with her puffy, bloodshot eyes. They think Dad killed Mr. Lowell. My instinct is to lie, but what's the point? Yes, they do. Tears stream down her cheeks, but he didn't. This next part is going to be hard for her, but she's going to hear it sooner or later. Better that she hears it from me than she reads it online or hears it from a friend. Ada, honey, he confessed. He admitted to them that he killed Mr. Lowell. He didn't, though, she cries. I know he didn't. I try to put my hand on her shoulder, but she shrugs me away. How do you know? Because, my daughter says, I was the one who killed him. This is so insane. This is the most ridiculous series I've ever read in my entire life. And so when we go into part 3, it's from Ada's point of view. It's from an 11-year-old girl's point of view. And if you thought that would be interesting, or maybe it would sound or be written differently, no, of course it's not. Literally all of these characters, you can tell me it's from a different point of view, but they all talk the exact same. There's no character differentiation, especially when there's like age gaps. Like you would think an 11-year-old girl, if you're going to give me something from her perspective, written in first-person perspective, that it would sound different. She would think different. She would talk different. No, she talks and sounds the exact same as her 40-year-old mother. So My name is Ada Accardi, and I am 11 years old. I have black hair and eyes that are actually brown, except some people might say that they look black as well. I have one brother named Nicholas, and he is 9 years old. I speak 2 languages fluently, English and Italian. My favorite food is macaroni and cheese, especially the way my mom makes it. My favorite book is Daughters of Eve by Lois Duncan. My favorite flavor of ice cream is cookie dough. Also, I killed my next door neighbor, Jonathan Lowell. And one more thing, I'm not sorry. And it goes into How to Kill Your Creepy Next Door Neighbor, a guide by Ada Accardi, grade 5. Step 1, leave behind your home and everything you love. Which, again, call back to the very, very first book when we went into part 2 of that book and we had the POV change, right? In book 1, we had Millie's for part 1, and then we got the point of view from the wife. And when we got the wife's point of view, she too was writing a guide. The guide that she was writing was how to leave your narcissistic abusive husband or something like that. How to leave and get revenge on or something your narcissistic abusive husband. And then it was written out step by step. So we're doing a big, I think what would be by maybe any other author feel like a parallel, a good callback. Maybe a through line, a passing of the torch of one, it's not vigilante, maybe vigilante justice, from one scenario to another, and it would feel different. But in this instance, it just feels like it's a washed and repeated idea instead of a well thought out reapplication of the same idea to prove character growth or to show some other deeper meaning, which I think would be the intent, or I said, is what it would feel like for any other author. But with Freida, it just feels very, very shallow, and it feels repetitive, and it feels weird, and it just feels reused rather than built upon. Does that make sense? And I can't really tell you exactly why I feel that way. I wish I could. I wish I had the ability and the right words to express what's happening in my brain to feel this, but I can't. But yeah, so Ada writes us this whole guide. Step 1 is leave behind your home and everything you love, because they had to restart life when they moved to Long Island. This chapter is just talking about how hard the move was for her and how bad she felt. And same with the following chapter. That one is called Step 2, Try to Fit In Badly, and how at school she's actually not making any friends, and how the kids are bullying her, and there's this one boy that's particularly weird and tries to flirt with her and doesn't listen when she says that she doesn't want him to talk to her. And it's just really bad vibes all the way around. We also get a little bit more of the dynamic where she is very, very involved with wanting to protect her brother and look out for him and take care of him. And he makes a comment about how she's pretty much more of a helicopter parent than Millie is. And she's even more in his business than their mom is. And he's making this particular comment because Ada, the daughter, was telling him to be careful because all of the people at school were still talking about that little boy that went missing. And so she's very, very worried about her little brother, which is very reasonable. And they know that when they get off of the bus that day and they're going back into the house, that they look over to Suzette's home and that there is a man that is staring at them through the window, being Jonathan, her husband, right? He's creepy bad vibes staring at them. Can you imagine where this is going? I'm going to let you simmer on it for a second about where you think this is going to unravel to and what the big grand twist of it all is going to be, okay? Step 3 of her guide is learn to live in your new home. So she's getting used to living in said new house. And there gets to be mention of when Nico had broken that window and he was going over to Suzette's house to clean. And Ada asks, she's like, hey, so what do you clean when you go over there? And he gets really, really weird about answering and starts acting really weird. And she's noticing that her brother goes directly to his room after dinner. And she's just noticing these odd behaviors in him. And so she tries to talk to him on the school bus one day about it. And he just, again, refuses to talk to her. She wakes up one morning and he's nowhere to be found. And when she's in the kitchen, making herself some cereal, Martha, right, the cleaning lady, she's in there cleaning. And she notices that she has some bruises on her wrist. And Ada asks about it, and Martha acts weird about it, and then they go on about their way. And Ada's sitting there thinking to herself, I wish I could help her. And also, yeah, she probably doesn't want to, tell a kid about what's going on in her life. Of course she wouldn't tell me. And again, we're just setting it up that she is, in fact, her mother's child, wanting to help everybody around her and just being very, empathetic, One day after school, Her dad is running late to pick her up, and so Ada gets really worried that maybe she'll be the next kid to get kidnapped. But instead, it's one of the kids from school, like one of the weird ones that was like flirting with her way too much and acting strange. He comes up to her, asks her to be his girlfriend, gets really pushy and talkative about it until Enzo finally comes up in his pickup truck to get her, and then the kid goes running off. And then Enzo says, hey, I'm not always going to be around to protect you. And he feels really guilty about his sister still, right? That has been like an ongoing thing in all of these books about Enzo's guilt of not being able to protect his sister soon enough. And so he says, Ada, I want you to be able to protect yourself when I'm not around, so I want you to have this. And he gives her his pocket knife. She's worried that, she's going to get in trouble for having one. And he says, just keep it a secret, okay? Just, if nobody knows you have it, you can't get in trouble. And also, if anybody ever bothers you, just stab them in the stomach. Is the advice. Okay. Step 4 of Ada's guide is start to suspect the terrible truth. And this is where the trigger warning about, like, child SA comes in. The terrible truth being that Nico is being abused by the neighbor, okay? He comes home one day from cleaning their house, and the front of his pants are wet, and it smells like urine. She just really, really wishes that her brother would talk to her and tell her what's going on, and he refuses to, and just, makes her promise to not tell anybody about, this mess in particular. He still doesn't come clean with her fully about what is going on, and eventually she ends up seeing him go into that secret room that's under the stairway, follows him in there. He says that it's his secret clubhouse and he just wants to be left alone. And before they can really do anything or have any further of a conversation, their parents find them. And Ada was crying when they were found because she was just so worried about her brother and frustrated and upset that he wasn't telling her what was going on. One of the days when she's at school, that same kid that's just being creepy and hitting on her way too much does it again when they're in the library, and she thinks about pulling out her knife on him and stabbing him in the stomach, and talks herself out of it, decides that that's not a good use of it, and doesn't. But it sure, again, kind of sets a tone for this violent streak and conflict resolution that these children have not been taught at all. In chapter 69, we're getting the beach trip from Ada's perspective. And so on this, she's noticing that there's weird tension and that Nico is completely avoiding the Lowells. So that's Suzette and her husband, completely avoiding them, which is kind of weird because he's going over there and cleaning for them all the time. You would think that they would have some type of friendly or talk to each other or something. But Nico goes out of his way to avoid them. And so she's seeing all of this. And then when they're in the water, she overhears Suzette threatening her brother. She doesn't really hear all of the words, but it's enough of it for her to decide to pull Suzette under the water to try to scare her / drown her. And then of course, right, Enzo saves Suzette, so everything's fine there. Step 5 of Ada's guide is find out the truth. And on this particular night, she was up late kind of thinking about everything going on with her brother, and he knocks on her bedroom door and comes in with a sleeping bag and asks if he can sleep in her room. And then he begins crying, and then he opens up and tells her about everything that's going on. Obviously, he asks her to promise him not to tell anybody, and says how this had started, which was he found the small stair under the stairwell room at the Lowell's house, and when he had gone in it, there was a bunch of child toys, and so he was in there playing with these toys. So the husband finds Nico in this room playing with these toys, finds out that he broke one of them, and tells Nico that he has to stay in there and keep playing with them to make up for it. And he is being filmed, and it's just kind of really weird vibes, okay? There's some insinuation about some other stuff that I'm not going to go into, but eventually Suzette, right, the wife, she finds out about what's going on, and so she says that Nico is no longer allowed to come over to the house. So that's where that had stemmed from way earlier in the book. But the husband makes Nico keep coming over in secret, and he can't tell anybody, or he's going to make Nico's family actually pay him back for all the stuff that he broke, and his family can't afford it, and so now you guys are going to lose your house. Blah, blah, blah. Really, it just manipulates the kid into keeping coming over here. And then eventually it turned into, and if you tell anybody what's going on, like, I'll kill your family. And so the little boy just continues to go along with all of this stuff. Ada, hearing her brother finally open up and say all of these things, she says, hey, it's okay. Like, Dad's stronger than that guy anyway. Like, we can tell Dad what's going on and he'll protect us, protect you. He, again, begs her not to tell anybody. And she says, okay, fine. But, like, somebody needs to tell the husband that, like, you're not going to go over there anymore. Like, that's not happening anymore. And so chapter 72 is step 6 of Ada's guide, which is stand up for your little brother. So she goes over to their house the same way that she has seen her dad go over there, which is like through the backyard, because that's where he's doing most of his landscaping and whatnot. So she takes the secret back way into the house, and she finds their small room, like their small stairway room, and opens up the door to go inside. And when she's in there, she sees all these toys, and then she also sees a like child-sized mattress in the corner, and pulls back the blanket that's on top of it and sees a like blood stain on the mattress. Oh, okay. And then she hears the husband enter the room. Lots of back and forth between the two of them. And Ada stabs him in the stomach with her knife. Like, she pulls out the knife, stabs him in the stomach, twists it like her dad had told her to, and then she runs home. She runs right into her brother, who sees her, like her shirt's covered in blood, the knife and everything. And he helps her get cleaned up, and she's freaking out, and she tells him everything that she did, and they think she killed the husband. And they decide to get cleaned up and to not tell anybody what happened. And since she went the secret way into the house, they're just going to keep it a secret and just act like nothing happened, and they have no idea what's going on.
Oh my gosh.
Millie calls Enzo after hearing this confession, and she says, hey, you need to retract your confession. Like, if Ada says that she killed the guy, and she, she gives these reasons and stuff, like, they're not going to persecute her. She's not going to go to jail. So, like, you need to tell them the truth so you can get out. And Enzo says, A, you're being freaking stupid. That's not how any of this works. But B, also, don't you remember? The guy's throat was slit. It's not that he got stabbed in the stomach. Like, his throat was cut as well, which Ada is saying, didn't happen. So it sounds like she went back and, like, did that to him to ensure he was dead. Or Nico did, or somebody did, which is even more alarming. And Millie says, oh yeah, you're kind of right, huh? That is a little scary. In which case, I'm like, are we not on a recorded line? Why are you saying all of these things? Why is any of this conversation happening? So, again, time passing, whatever. We're in chapter 77. We're near the end of this book. She gets picked up by that weird detective that is, like, looking out for them and doing, like, super illegal, giving them a heads up about the investigation. And he's doing that yet again, right? He's driving Millie to the bail hearing for Enzo, and he says, hey, I'm going to tell you something, but this is a secret, and you can't tell anybody, because if you do, I could lose my job. Okay. So it turns out that the cops, when they had, investigated the crime scene and stuff, when the husband was found, they had found that little room under the stairway, and Suzette's fingerprints were in there, which means Suzette knew what was going on, at least to some degree. And they had also found that blood stain. Millie is pissed that Suzette knew about this. And so she asks this detective guy to bring her to Suzette's hotel so she can talk to her before the police do. How does that work? Okay, I feel like this is all just like absolute made up. Okay, all right, cool. And so that's exactly what they do. They go to the hotel room to talk to Suzette. And the officer tells her, like, hey, they found that room under the stairway. And she denies knowing anything about it. He's like, no, they found your fingerprints, Suzette. Like, we know that you knew about that room. And also, that blood pool, like the blood stain that was on that mattress, it belongs to the little boy that went missing. The one that we've, like, talked about a couple of times, or has gotten brought up a couple of times. It belongs to him. And the detective goes on to say that the police are digging up her yard, where they will likely find the boy's body. And so then she breaks down, and she, like, finally, like, confesses everything. And she's like, I had no idea any of this was going on. I had no idea that happened until after my husband had murdered that little boy. And so then they're like, okay, cool. So, like, if you didn't know after the fact, but why didn't you turn him in? And she says that she didn't, because she stayed married to him to protect all the other children, because he promised that he would never do it again. Which, okay, all right. And so they tell her... Millie and this random detective, they say, hey, how about you do this? Tell the cops that you killed your husband because you found out what he did. And then that was like your reaction. You know, maybe police self-defense that you thought he was going to hurt you for finding out about the room or something like that. And she's like, I need time to think about it. I don't know what I'm going to do. So Millie and the cop leave, and the cop thinks that Suzette will do this, that she'll confess to the murder. But Millie doesn't think that this is going to happen. She thinks that this is going to go on for a lot longer. And honestly, the last 2 chapters, like, don't really add anything to the situation other than the fact that it's 2 weeks after Suzette had confessed to the guy's murder. And so now the family's back together. The gang's all back together. Enzo, Millie, the kids, they're having breakfast, hanging out, talking about going on vacation. And then in chapter 80, Ada is back in school, and those like guys are being creepy to her again, like the other boys that are like hitting on her. And she threatens them, and it's dumb, and they like believe her because she's like, well, I'll just like cut off your junk if you keep it up. So they're like, you wouldn't do that. Maybe not, I say. But actually, I think I could. Would you like to find out? From the look on his face, I don't think he would like to find out. He jumps out from his seat, backing away from me. You're a psychopath, he says. I just shrug and smile at him. He stumbles away from the table, practically tripping over his own feet in his eagerness to get away from me. I don't think he's going to be bothering me again. I'd like to think he isn't going to be bothering any other girls again. I pick up my book to continue reading, but before I do, I glance out the window next to me. It's gloomy enough outside that I can almost see my reflection in the glass. It's funny, because I always thought I was practically identical to my dad with my dark hair and eyes, but now that I'm looking at myself in the blurry window, I realize as I've gotten older, my facial features have become a lot more similar to my mom's. I never noticed it until this very moment. I look just like her. How funny. So, okay, couple issues here. I mean, I hope you can kind of pick up on it, like, grammatically of why I haven't been reading you anything, because she says it's funny, or how funny, twice over the span of, like, one paragraph that we're, like, ending this with. This one singular paragraph, she repeats this idea of it being funny. She repeats that she looks like her mother. You know what I'm saying? This entire taking up like more than half of my phone screen, if you're watching visually, is literally just repetitive that she looked in the mirror and looked at the window and looked like her mom. Why did it have to stretch out into 7 sentences? You know what I'm saying? And that's how the entire book is. Like, bro, cut to the freaking chase here. I think a lot of this writing, and this kind of goes to like a testament of how digital books is like ruining the like book industry and like literature in general, because books that are on Kindle Unlimited, the authors get paid by like the page count and the pages read. And so it's like incentivized to bloat your books and to write all these crazy long books, or to make these so much longer than they need to be, because there's like a financial gain there, right? There's like a reason to, rather than just like cutting to the point and like being concise with your writing. And there's a time and place for like even flowery language, but this isn't flowery. This is just repetitive to be repetitive. So either, you know, it's a it's a skill issue. You're doubting your reader's ability to have like reading comprehension skills and understand what's going on, and so you feel it necessary to like convey your point in such a way, in which case, again, skill issue, write better so that they can like consume that material. And it's not, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's frustrating, but that's the end of the book, except for the epilogue, which is actually worth reading. How long is this epilogue? Okay, the epilogue is pretty long, so I'll go ahead and just summarize it. It's from Martha's point of view. Yeah, the cleaning lady. She's staying in a motel. Her husband still hasn't found her, and, you know, she still has the gun that Enzo gave her, and she's been keeping it for protection. And she's, like, hoping to work under the table to, like, keep maintaining her freedom. She also gets revealed that she's been cleaning houses for a really, really long time, like her entire life. And she used to clean houses for this one really, really rich family a long time ago. And on one of the nights, the family that she cleaned for, the son had assaulted a girl. And then 3 months later, that son was dead. And then come to find out, it was the guy that Millie killed, right? Martha cleaned for the family of the boy that Millie killed when she was 17 years old. Right? The son, the family that Martha cleaned for is the one that had sexually assaulted Millie's friend. Crazy connection here. So she knew about Millie from like a long time ago. And so she recognized Millie immediately when they came and toured the house. And so Martha had lied to all of the other potential buyers and anybody else that came to look at that house and was telling them about all the stuff that was wrong with it, or that it was like haunted and all of this other stuff to make everybody else, you know, turn away from it and not purchase it. So that's how they were able to get the house. And that's how they were able to get the house at such a good deal, because Martha was looking out for them. And also, you know, she did this a little bit selfishly. It's not just because she thought Millie did something good and deserved something good. Martha also wanted help getting out of her marriage. And so she was trying to get closer to Millie, but every time that she would go over there and like try to ask for help or try to talk to her about everything, she just like froze and couldn't bring herself to ask for it and to say anything to Millie. And so she had gone about, like we said, stealing from Millie, then couldn't do that anymore because she got caught. And so then she was stealing from Suzette. And so on one particular day, she was over at the house cleaning and sneaking around and trying to steal things when she comes downstairs and finds Jonathan, the husband, holding his stomach in the living room. And he begins shouting at her for stealing. I guess maybe she had some stuff out that he was able to see. And so he starts freaking out at her, telling her, you know, yelling at her about all of this stuff and threatening to have her arrested. And she knows that, like, if her husband finds out that she was stealing, that, like, he would literally end her life. And so instead, she picks up a letter opener from the table and decides to off the husband, off Jonathan, and slits his throat, which is exactly how the police had found him. And that's why that happened. And she's the one that was in the prologue. That's what the prologue was. It was from Martha's point of view. And yeah, she thought that the cops would catch her at some point, but they never did. They like literally never even questioned her. And she doesn't feel any guilt about Suzette being in jail, you know, doesn't really care at all. And then also is just happy that she's free from her husband. And that's the series. That's how the trilogy ends. I don't know. I don't really got any words. I don't know what you want from me. What was the purpose? There's also a thing where, like, the detective, the weird one that keeps giving them inside information, is going on a date with the wife from the first book. Like, there's a lot of callbacks and, like, weird connections to things for no reason other than just to have it there. I don't know, dude. Why did these all have to be interconnected? Why does any of it matter? Sometimes I think a lot of it is just to keep the namesake, right? Like if the one was like a flash in a pan, super popular book, then you're gonna like continue to build on it to try to like capitalize on the popularity. There's not really any reason for this to have been a trilogy, to make these interconnected, because they're so loosely connected from one to the other anyway. I don't know. Like I said, I've read 5 or 6 Freida McFadden books at this point, and I feel like I've just read the same books again and 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 again, you know? And it doesn't ever stop. So we're going to get away from Freida McFadden for a while. I don't know what I'm going to read on Thursday of this week. If you made it to the end of this video, you get a little bit of insight about what the future looks like. I think I'm going to do a monster romance because I haven't done one in a long time. I was going to do The Shape of Water, which I still might do. I don't think I'll do that on a Thursday, though. That's like a Monday video. I might do The Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon, because I've been saying that I need to do that for like ever, and I know people are itching for that one. And I haven't really done anything for the monster romance folks in like a long time. So maybe we'll do that. And then next Monday, you should be excited, I am doing another really major thriller that is not Freida McFadden. I believe I'm going to do, I think my plan is, if my app will load, it's either going to be The Girl on the Train or None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. Let me know if you have a preference of one of those 2 books, because those are super uber popular and I think that would be fun to talk about. And then I think maybe when we go into December, I might start doing some of like the Goodreads Choice Award books. It'll be interesting. I want to see what's popular. What are people digging? Maybe we'll actually find some good books at the end of the year, you know? So I think that's kind of what's on the horizon. I think that's what we're going to deal with. And I think that's all I have, guys. Thanks again to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. And if you want to go and enjoy their Black Friday early bird deals, you get the lowest prices of the year and you get a chance to get your order for free if you go on there and order. And then, like I said, use my code YTE730 at checkout to get $30 off if you want to be desk twins and get the E7L Lite standing desk. Ah, so exciting. Okay, like I said, appreciate you guys. Love you so much. Thank you so much for being here. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.